It's always funny at the start of these being like, hi, Sarah, when really we've been talking for 5 minutes already. Like,
I I know. We've been warming up, right?
yeah. And okay, let's just jump into what we were just talking about because I didn't really have a plan for what we should talk about on this. Like at these sessions with having guests on, I used to like when I had them on YouTube, and you know that, I mean, you came on that, we'd try and have like some sort of topic we're going to talk about or some sort of like lesson that you're going to teach. But these I find maybe it's just more of a selfish thing that I just want you guys to come on here and just like we'll just talk about real life things. And it's just turned into sort of like showing people the behind the scenes of what it actually looks like to be an artist with a following. Um,
Right.
so yeah, let's just be real and tell the people what you just told me 2 minutes ago, and we haven't even really talked about it yet.
I know, right? Well, I've got my coffee, and I was saying that I'm a little sleepy because I've been up a lot lately. About 2 weeks ago, it was a routine doctor's check. I have a 5-year-old daughter. I have two daughters. One's 9, one's 5. And we brought her in, and there were some signs like, she was eating like a lot, but she'd only eat nibbles and like weird things. So we're like, let's get her into the doctor. And we ended up being checked into children's emergency, and she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So my poor baby, she's and this is the kid that like you couldn't even say the word shot in front of her without like hysterics, like, oh, we have to go to a well child. And I was like, no, 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 it's okay. It's no shots this time. But then, of course, it's like we go and we didn't promise that. I really I soften the blow, but I'm not willing to lie to her and tell her that there's going to be no pain. But yeah, so she's been type 1 diabetes. She's been diagnosed with it. And many people probably don't know because I haven't shared it a lot, but this is a huge part of my story. So 2.5 years, my husband was diagnosed with MS as well. So it was right when I was selfishly trying to submit the manuscript of my first book. The manuscript was due a week after he there was weird signs, all of the weird signs that I'm sure you had to recognize as well. So, the roller coaster of a chronic illness is something that we've been battling for almost 3 years. And then to have my daughter also join that is hard. Two in one family is a lot, but yeah, it's just I'm very composed and put together right now, but it's there's some days where I'm like, we've got this. Actually, I've learned it's not about days or even moments. I've started to divide the day in quarters, kind of like a game. So
Mm.
like, right? First quarter, doing great. Sometimes second and third quarter are rough, but you can always redeem it in the fourth. So, it's better for me to not wash the whole day out. I like the idea that there's second chances and grace. And um, so yeah, some days it's like no big deal. And other days it's like she's saying, please don't hurt me. This is awful. I want my old life back.
Oh,
And
I can't even, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I have to take shots and it sucks even as an adult. So I can't even imagine having to do that with a child. That's really tough.
so you're taking the meds with shots.
Yeah. What does your husband do?
He he's stubborn as a mule. Colin's a force of nature. He's an Enneagram 8. So if anyone knows the Enneagram well, he's a challenger. So when he was told this, he's scared of medication. So he won't be watching this. He doesn't have Facebook, so we're fine. I could say he's scared of it. So instead of taking meds, he actually completely changed his diet. He's 100% vegan. He is a machine when it comes to working out. He actually takes his blood sugar all the time to check, he goes in all the time for scans. And the doctor's like, I can't tell you not to take medication because you have MS, but so far you're
Yeah.
doing great. So I would probably take the meds because there's no way. I mean, he can't have a donut. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
love donuts. So
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to keep talking about this stuff. Like we should like relate it back to art at some point. But when I was diagnosed, it was a similar thing where the doctors obviously said, I remember the doctor specifically like sort of tiptoeing around that she like she thought it was stupid if people didn't take the meds kind of thing. She didn't want, she's a great doctor. I really like her, but you could tell that she really wanted to encourage me to take the meds without telling me I had to kind of thing. And so she said something like, if you go on the meds, you have these chances of not having a relapse. And if you don't, then most people relapse within, she phrased it in a way that made it sound like that it was a no-brainer kind of thing. But when I went home and really dug into it and read a lot about it, I learned all about, like radically changing your lifestyle and whatever. And it took me, like, I'm usually a very decisive person. And it took me a good like 2 months to decide whether or not I was going to go on the meds or not. And I decided in the end to go on the meds, but also do the radical changes in lifestyle thing, because why would I not cover all the bases?
I like that.
Yeah, but at the same time, it sort of makes you wonder, like I haven't had relapses since. I have like minor symptoms, but it makes me wonder like which one of those things is helping. And I don't have a way of like choosing, so I'm not going to go off the meds now because
your
maybe
body
that's what's helping. And like, it just makes it all a little bit more confusing.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just interesting, but autoimmunity running through a family is definitely a thing. And I even like, I remember learning that normally autoimmune diseases don't come in ones, they come in like threes usually. So it might be that your husband or your daughter has multiple things, which I'm learning about for myself as well. So it's just like a whole bundle of fun. But
it relates to art.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, like when we right before we came on, you started talking about that, and I was like, wait, hold that thought. We need to bring this onto the camera, because I also just hear from a lot of people that art is like their therapy. And so, Kate, just say what you were about to say to me when I cut you off before we started.
Yeah, no. So when Colin was diagnosed, and also just these past 2 weeks of processing, there is this, when I create, it's out of chaos, right? So I see all this chaos and I feel all this chaos, and there's things bubbling up inside of me, and there's feelings I cannot express even verbally. Sometimes I just want to run through a window. Other times I want to, just be done. I'm just done with it. I'm so over it. I get frustrated. But I've noticed that when I feel that chaos inside, or I see the chaos, when I create, it's the calm. And even if I'm scribbling on a page with a bunch of different colors, I found those Neo colors, those Cray Pass pens or like little crayons really, that we used in workshop week. Those have been such an amazing, there's something very tactile about just that back and forth, and it's like a wash of it. And Madeline Langle talks about it. Most people know her for writing A Wrinkle in Time, and she wrote a children's book series. But she actually wrote a lot of books for adults, and Walking on Water is her book about creativity and what it looks like to create. And she talks about how creating in chaos leads to cosmos, and it gives meaning and thought, and it helps you put the pain in order. And I think that's, as much as, we would be just sitting and having coffee and talking about this is like the first things that come up. And it's harder to write on Instagram and to share it, because you just never know what space someone's in when they come on your post. And there's not enough words, there's not enough space to talk about it, and to that human empathy of like, this is actually what's happening. But I'm going to share it. I just got to figure out what my words say. But for now, because I like to draw and paint, that's where the energy is going, is I'm translating the feelings into art.
Mm-hmm. And you, right before we came on, you were telling me that, was it a therapist was talking to you?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Thank you for keeping me on track. Yeah. So it was pretty funny. The training for diabetes, and anybody watching that has it knows that it's pretty steep. But the ironic thing is that basically like a week before my husband and I got married, he was actually told he was pre-diabetic by his doctor. They're like, you probably are going to get diabetes. And you're 25 and you're like, who cares? We'll be fine.
Eat the damn donuts.
Yes. Weather the storm together. And the reality of chronic illness is it's daily, right? It's exhausting, right? So that was kind of this is the autoimmune that Colin has been preparing for our entire marriage. And then for him to get MS was like out of the blue. But then for our daughter to get it, he was already so well equipped. So I've been in these training sessions and he's like answering all these questions. I'm like, oh, you know this. But something he didn't know about was the art aspect. And it was really interesting. So we met with this well child checkup gal, and she was wonderful. And she's like, I don't know if you guys are into art at all. And Colin's like nudging me under the table. I'm like, oh, yeah.
You're like, well, I actually have a few books published through the most famous publisher in the world. No big deal.
I know. I was like, I don't know if he's nudging me to not say anything or if he's nudging me to be like, hey, you got this. But anyway, so she's like, sometimes it helps to draw out your feelings. And during COVID, we had already started to do that. Like I noticed the frustration build up in my kids, and it would come out just kind of cranky behavior. And I'm like, well, I'm cranky too. So I get it. We're all locked in this house together. So we would actually draw our feelings out, and then we would burn it in a family bonfire that night. We'd have s'mores and we would burn the hard feelings. So when our therapist it was a well child gal, and she's like, yeah, if it helps. And so I volunteered that story, and she goes, oh my gosh, I have my minor in art therapy, and hearing that, like, you're the perfect parent for this. And I'm like, okay, that was a blessing. Just hearing this, like, okay, we can do this. But she's like, you should ask her to draw diabetes. If it was a monster, what would it look like? And let's draw it together. And so I think when she's in that space, we're gonna just get our papers out. And she's like, before you burn it, please send me a photo of it.
That's really okay. That's so cute. Yeah. I had an art therapist on the YouTube show one time. And I remember before I had her on, like just thinking about the number of people who have told me that learning calligraphy or learning like any sort of art through my channel or through my courses or whatever has like radically changed their mental health. And I mean, it's something that I never ever expected would be something that I'm like doing or actively helping people with, because I am by no means like an expert on that, but it was really interesting to bring her onto the show and have her talk about like how it actually helps and all of the, like, it's just so crazy how much it helps. And I think I see a lot of people in the comments saying like, yeah, it helps. And yeah, like I'm one of those people kind of thing. And I think so many people can benefit from that, but it's so cute that it relates to your kid too.
Yeah, it relates. It's one of those languages that supersedes age, everything. Every category or box we see ourselves in. Art is one of those things that goes, it hits everybody at a different level. And I know during like the lockdowns and everything, I have my basement studio. I'm trying to call it my studio because it seems so much cooler than being like, I'm going down to the basement. But we're in the basement and it's nice and cool down here. But in the winter in Seattle, it gets dark at like 4 o'clock, and it doesn't get bright in the morning until like 10, 11, it feels like. And it's just kind of gray all the time in winter. But I would paint, right? I go into kind of this different world when I'm arting, as my kids say, I'm arting. And I'd come up, ready for dinner. And my husband was just, all the stats about all the sadness. And he's like, why are you so happy? I'm like, I think I was able to kind of release all of this pain out, and I found a way to mindfully find peace. So we did some watercolor lessons together, and he really enjoyed it too. So
that's nice. I feel like Ryan would absolutely shut that down, but I was going to say that it sounds like your husband's version of that is exercise also, which
yes,
is relevant for all of us as well. Like I think that's helpful as well on top of art, but
yeah, you should see like this spare room right to this side of me. It kills me. Like during COVID, it was like a new exercise equipment machine would arrive. I mean, you can barely even walk in that room. You like have to weave through things. And I'm like, oh my God. But I get it. I'm like, that's your outlet. I have what I call the art cave, and it's like in the basement behind the stairs and where the furnace is. And it's just stacks of all my stuff, right? Where it's not pretty.
Yeah.
So I've got the cave. He's got his own version. And yeah, you can Working out, I know I keep thinking I need to work out more. I just
Well, so I just started reading this book recently, and it's talking about the stress cycle, which also relates to all of this. But
Mhm.
um, they're talking about how the problem with stress is when you don't complete the stress cycle. And I'm like gonna butcher this probably because I just read the chapter about it, but they're basically saying like your body responds to stress in a way that it needs to also release it. So let's say you were in nature and you were being chased by a bear, and then you turned around and you killed the bear and you got away. Like your body knows now that you're safe and you've completed the stress cycle. Whereas like in the real world, we get all this stress and we don't actually release it. And so our body holds it. And that's when like so many issues happen. And it was talking about how like the different ways to end that cycle. And the two of the best ones are exercise and art.
Ah,
And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So
totally.
yeah, it's just funny that it's all coming up again in a conversation. I was just talking about this the other day too with someone else, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I just love the idea that art is becoming more of the conversation about mental health because I feel, or just mental health in general is coming up more. But, we all know we're supposed to eat right. We all know we're supposed to exercise. We all know we're supposed to like get enough hours of sleep. But there is that like art feeds your soul. Like there's something more that's happening with art that's it's not just like a physical or just like exercise. Like I've always thought of it's like, okay, I got to get sweaty for 30 minutes a day. And I'm like, do I do that? No, I need to do that. I actually gave myself bursitis writing my book as well. I like crossed my leg and then leaned and drew for like a month straight. It was actually for the coloring book. So I need to go in and like get a cortisone shot or something. I did not mean this all to be about health. It's so funny. It's like I am that person that's like doesn't want to talk about health, doesn't want to talk about exercise. I want to talk about art. I want to talk about supplies and materials and lofty dreams and the next workshop. And ooh, where'd you get that top? Like that's what I want to cover. But it's so funny how my life has shifted and changed in ways that I did not expect. And when the people you love are struggling, that really starts to shape the conversation and you start to find things like an outlet in art and exercise and
Well, and
just
you realize how many other people are experiencing the same thing too, like just the people in the comments all saying that too right now.
yeah.
Okay, but we did get a couple questions like,
Oh
submitted
yay.
for you ahead of time, so let's just like shift gears.
Okay.
It'll probably just naturally come back to this anyway, let's be honest. But
Yeah.
okay, yeah, the first question, it's going to bring us right back there, I think. Someone asked, what are your sources for continual inspiration? Do you continue to work through periods that feel like inspiration's not there? Do you take breaks?
Mm.
Um, yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, so I do take breaks, and I used to believe the lie that an artistic cycle, like there were times when I'd be in this artistic cycle, like this low, and I'd be like, I'm not actually an artist. This was all a joke. I didn't actually paint that. I don't know what I'm doing. This is a joke. Give up. But it's interesting how Instagram and people in this community, they refuel one another, right? So we all hit our highs, and those are like those incredible creating where you just like you can't even, keep up with the ideas that are coming out. And then there's longer periods that where you're in these lows and you're like, was it all a dream? Stephen Pressfield has a really good book. You've probably already read it. It's The War of Art. And it is, my copy is so dog-eared and like folded over and highlighted. And I actually, when one of my books came out, I quoted him in it, and you have to go to the author and ask. And I was like, oh, he's not going to answer. And he responded, and he was so lovely. And he's like, send me a copy of the book, da da da. So he was absolutely wonderful. So it makes me love the book even more. But he really did. And the chapters are like bite-sized. They're like paragraphs sometimes. And it talks about that cycle and how everybody goes through a cycle in creativity and whatever. And the more resistance you feel to creating again, the more you just need to do it. The more you just need to sit down. One of my friends, Colleen Elizabeth Art is her Instagram, but she talks about swallowing the frog. It's like, just do it. Just get it done early in the morning, start. And really that's that process of starting when you're in a low. That's fuel itself. And then there's also the lows where you're exhausted and you just do need to give yourself a break. There's two types of cycle lows that I've seen. And usually when those hit, like right now, I'm pretty tired. Like I've been creating, but nothing that's like a masterpiece that requires a lot of brain power because I'm just too tired. Um, and that's when I'm digging in the dirt a lot. I'm out in the garden, like you said, you walk around in your robe and your coffee and you just deadhead flowers. Like you become the mom that you watched in
Oh
the
yeah.
window.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, that actually is incredibly healing, like walking through the garden and snipping here, just being watching the bees and how busy they are, like things like that just are very calming. So yes, I experience lows. And it helps to identify which one it is, whether I need to push through and do it. Like I painted 4 pieces yesterday. I needed to push through, swallow the frog. They were assignments, I got them done. And then there's also I'm exhausted. So there's nothing creatively like flowing out that's something that I'm gonna call a masterpiece anytime.
That brings up another interesting question in my mind. Well, obviously I have a million questions about your garden, but we'll just pass on that for now because we've not talked about art for long enough on here. But you just said that you pushed through 4 paintings because they were assignments and because you kind of had a deadline. So talk a little bit about how having deadlines on your art affects your creative process, because it's okay. So like one thing that I've noticed recently, who I was talking about it with Shada last week. But we were talking a lot about like doing YouTube videos and doing tutorials and stuff, and how we're finding that it actually kind of makes us worse artists in a way, because the process of having to film it and having to do the videos and focusing on all of that versus focusing on the actual project is affecting it. So I'm curious in like what ways the business side of things affect the art side of things for other people too.
Yeah. Yeah, I still float in that space. Like I'm not 100% sure. Sometimes having the assignments like yesterday, like I had some deadlines and they came up real quick. I was like, "Whoa, I did not do anything for a while." So I was like, "I have to get this done." Sometimes it's a good fire, like, "Oh, this is I wasn't procrastinating, right? That my days were very full, but sometimes it's a good fire and it's really exciting to do the art. Other times, so I guess what I found as I stutter around this, I guess what I found is when I have like a commission, I will clean my entire space before I begin. When I am inspired and it's just flowing out of me, I can work in
Mm.
a mess, and I find it's easier because then I have all my tools there and it's just like, oh, grab that. Oh, this is so exciting. So I don't know yet. I don't know 100%. I do know that usually commissions are more like we have a pre-designed plan and everything is laid out, so it feels more like you said, the lighting. Like it feels less artistic and more like
Calculated. Yeah.
yes. Where when I'm creating for myself, I'm not thinking, how am I going to teach someone to paint this? I'm just flowing.
Yeah.
There's a difference in my mental state and the outcome. Absolutely. That's why when people commission me and they're like, I like this one gal is so great. I'm doing a tattoo for her soon. And she's like, I like rhinoceroses, butterfly wings, and these 5 flowers. Go. And I'm like, yes, that's what I want. I want like tiny bit of direction and then for my imagination and my creativity to take place, right? So not
Mhm.
quite so prescribed. And then I think it ends up better, right? Because you're not as calculated.
Yeah, but it's so hard to find that balance
It
when
is.
when you want to teach it, because the best teaching, the best outcomes will come when I'm in that flow, but I can't be in that flow if I'm teaching. It's like a catch 22.
Yeah. Well, because it's when you're in that flow, there's no A, B, C. There's no, it's like you do things and then you overdo things and then you do things differently. And there's no very calculated linear plan where when you teach, you want to give a linear plan because someone's following along, right?
Mhm.
So it's a very different cycle.
Yeah. Whereas like and now that I'm thinking about this, I would love to just turn on the camera and at the start be like, I don't really know exactly what tools I'm going to use. And I don't really know exactly how I'm going to do this or like what it's going to look like, but I hope you like it. It's just people wouldn't watch that. They want to hear like, here are the tools you need, here are the
Yeah.
5 steps,
Yeah.
and here's exactly what you're going to create. And that like, it's such a blessing and a curse, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, have you ever thought about doing that? Like, I just was talking with Danny of Sketchbook School, which I'm sure you've heard of them. They're fabulous and he's wonderful. But he has like different classrooms on his channel. And I guess they do like a free flowing one. Like they have a teacher come on and be like, I don't know what's going to happen. And people kind of watch for art therapy. And some people follow along and then just kind of riff on their own. But I bet people would follow and watch you do that. I
Yeah,
would watch that.
maybe that's got to be a new series.
Yeah, just like I don't know what's happening. It's like here's the flow. And here's like what it actually looks like when I'm creating because it's messy and sometimes it's like, you're in the middle of a piece and you're like, I've invested a lot of time.
It
This
better turn out nicely.
yeah, and it looks like crap right now. Do I spend more of my time trying to redeem this piece or do I just give it up and start over and
Yeah.
say, usually I've found pushing through though. It's like, it's like that, it's like, oh, I've got this great idea. And then you start and you're like, yeah. And then you go, this is crap. Then I'm crap. And then usually people give up at the I'm crap part instead of going, oh no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So,
Yeah. You just gave me an idea for what the series will be called.
ooh.
It's going to be called Trust the Process.
Mhm.
And we'll see. We'll see if, yeah,
I like it.
I think it could be cool. People in the comments are saying that they would watch that. So
Yeah, I would watch it.
if it fails, Sarah, it's going to be your fault. Okay?
Tell me. You'll have one view and it'll be me.
You know what would be even cooler would be to like do sessions like this with 2 artists, but it's just our hands and we're both just creating stuff.
And
Maybe we're
talking.
chatting while yeah, but it's just our hands and people can watch.
It,
Yeah. Okay, cool.
it.
Okay, next time I have you on, that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, we'll just do our hands and maybe we like, okay, these are, I don't even want to limit myself on materials. I don't know if there could be any limits. We'll have to think about that.
That's another creativity question because I find now that I have this dream box just like filled with things and I can see them all, I get paralyzed. Whereas if I just have like one pen, good to go.
That's okay. So I didn't understand why I keep everything in a closet.
Mm.
I like the tidiness of like I have these really pretty rainbow prisms I put in my window, those stickers, and they put rainbows
I have
all
one
over.
of yours right there in my window.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you have one, because I drew you in my book, right? So obviously you had your rainbow prism. But I do like to have them put away, but that might also, I wasn't sure if that's a part of procrastination or not feeling frozen. So I haven't defined that yet. I don't know.
It's one of the, again, a blessing and a curse thing because now I have like, I feel better that my office is tidy. But then when I come in and I'm like, okay, I need to create something. And then I just like freak out. I don't know what to do. So
yeah, you've got your blank canvas right there behind you, which blank piece of paper is staring at you, right? That feels, I think some friends of mine, they just like will mark it. I think a famous artist has done that too. You just mark it with a big black line.
And you got to create something with it.
Yeah. And it's like, you've already marked it. You've already ruined it if you leave it. So then the pressure is removed. And it's like, oh, I can just go from there. Right. Sometimes I paint outside the lines just for that. Like I just painted this pair and it was like, I'm like, I got to paint outside the lines. It was yesterday. Cause I was like, I have to like remove this perfection feeling that I need to like be so precise. So I just went outside the line. I was like, okay, sweet. We can.
Is it right there on your desk? I just saw you looking at it.
Oh yeah, it's right. There's a bin right there that I can grab it. It's going to go up.
Are we allowed to see it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me grab it. It's, it's not that exciting.
It's so cute.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was for July prompts, there's the day prompts, right? Because it's World Watercolor Month. So I'm participating with Kiritaki, and I like the idea of taking, the prompts are one words. And I always like translating flowers from words. And the prompt that day is momentum, and the flower freesia is forward movement, which I felt like those things meant the same. So I drew freesias and a pear. So I don't know, felt kind of good.
Someone else asked, what is your what is your current favorite medium?
Ooh, I think it's those Neo color cray passes.
Mhm.
In fact, maybe I can do that on the pear. There's something about, so I like those cray passes with watercolor. I love mixed media. I,
Mm.
I feel I feel limited when I can only have one. Obviously, with all my ink stuff, right? I'm like, I have to have the form, then I have the flow. But the Neo color, it adds this texture, and the colors are so soft that you can layer them. And then I love the interaction of when you add one color to another. It's unexpected. It doesn't, blue and red don't always make purple when you scribble them
Mm.
together. And so it's interesting to see what happens.
Mm. Yeah, I bought some of those. I haven't played with them enough though, because
I
again,
know.
I come in here and I have 800 other things I could use. Maybe I'll just put those on my desk and let them taunt me until I use them.
Yeah. It's like the chocolate in the cupboard that's calling to you. It's like, if I just put the supply out and stare at it, it'll start calling my name.
Yeah, that chocolate's not the same story for me. That's gone instantly.
I have
Uh,
a I have these like, I think they carry them. I don't know if you guys have Bartels, but it's like a drugstore, and they have these Russell Stover. Most people probably know Russell Stover, and it's these chocolate covered. I like the strawberry filled cream. So like they have eggs at Easter, and then it's strawberry filled hearts at Valentine's Day. And I'm the one that goes in and buys like 3 boxes, like full boxes. So there's like 15 in each. And then I stash them in my closet, and I slowly eat them throughout the year. But my daughter found, not the diabetic, thank God, but the other one. That would have probably really hurt Savannah. But I was like, why is my store just gone? I'm like, I usually spit, and she just demolished them. I was so
yeah,
sad.
I would be your daughter.
Yeah.
I can't have these things in my house. Ryan had to hide the Nutella from me the other day.
Nutella. Man, that is my fate. When I lived in England, I would eat Nutella on a banana for lunch every day.
Mm.
Uh, it was very addicting.
Mhm.
It's so good. I might have to get some Nutella now.
That's a good thing it's hidden from me. I literally don't know where it is. And I know there's some in this house, but I don't know where.
Great.
Oh,
That's great. I like that he knows that about you. And he's like, I'm going to protect you from yourself.
yes. Yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
Oh, Jill said that they did the like free flow, trust the process kind of video with Ian Barnard one time on Design Cuts.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So other people are feeling that same thing. And I'm sure people that are learning and then are past, like I've had a lot of my previous students just go, hey, like, are you going to go like do a 2.0? Like, are you going to make it harder? Like, I'm ready for the harder.
Mhm.
And I think that harder, that next stage is like, okay, well, here's the next process. It's this more free flowing idea
Mhm.
where it's not ABC, it's
Take the training
AZ.
wheels off.
Yeah, it's this wild process. Like I love when you look at in art history, you learn like about masters, and they, now we can look at oil paintings and put x-ray on them, right? And you can actually see Van Gogh, Monet, all Rembrandt, all the greats, they would change their mind. And so like the ending picture is a man with his chin, under his chin, but in the beginning his arm was down, and then it was up here, and then it was here. So you can see that they went through this process of doubt and, oh crap, this doesn't look that great. I got to change it. But you never knew that, right? Because they didn't have Instagram. They weren't showing you the process.
I don't know what art history you took that was like so much cooler than my art history doing x-rays and stuff, because art history was the worst grades I ever got in school. Like in interior design, we had to take art history every year, and it was always my worst grade. I was like so bored by it. I never wanted to learn anything, but we weren't over there x-raying paintings and stuff.
I would come in. So I was actually an economics major. and my roommate was an art history major, and she wanted to be a photographer, but she had to take the art history classes. And she would be so sick of drawing still lifes, or she'd be like, hey, there's a lecture on da 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 today. And so I would just go with her, because at the UW, the classrooms were just giant. They, 250 kids, you don't even know who's in there. So I would only pop in on the cool days. So and I didn't have to take any tests on it.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was all about tests and just like memorizing different styles and people's names. And anyway, I didn't like art history, but that sounds cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the little tidbits. And now it's funny, I'm much more interested in that stuff, probably because I'm not being tested on it. And as you grow, you hone in on what you really like. And
I think if I took it now, I'd like it for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And when you're that young, it's really hard to know what you like. And there's so much information from so many subjects coming at you that the idea of memorizing more dates just feels really overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I remember before a test once, I just had studied as much as we could, and we all went, and there was a bowling alley beneath the cafeteria area, and we just all bowled for 3 hours before a test, because we were just maxed out on anything you could possibly obtain. And that's a fond memory. I don't know how we did on the test though, but bowling was great.
You did the physical activity to
You're
relieve the
right.
stress cycle, and then you probably did well, honestly.
You're so right. Our bodies just naturally chose it. How interesting. I need to read this book that you're referencing. That sounds really
It's called, I think it's just called Burnout,
okay.
or maybe it's a longer title. The cover is kind of overwhelming, but I'll send it to you later. But I'm pretty sure it's just called Burnout.
Okay, cool.
It's really good, although I'm just at the beginning. So
I'm excited. Very cool.
yeah, well, Sarah, thanks for coming on and chatting about the most random things. But
That's life.
yeah, that's life. And I think a lot of people will just relate to it anyway. And yeah, but can you introduce yourself and tell people who you are and where they can find you?
That feels like so perfect for a coffee session. That's exactly. I feel like we just met, it's like, oh, hey. So my name is Sarah Simon, and my Instagram is The Mint Gardener. And yeah, we didn't get to talk about my garden or why the Mint Gardener. We talked about why the Mint Gardener, my name is funny.
We talked about it a bit
YouTube.
on YouTube. Yeah. If anybody wants to see an actual interview and lesson with Sarah, you can watch it on YouTube, because it's a different pace than today, for sure.
Yes, we did that, and we did workshop week together, all that fun stuff. So the Mint Gardener on Instagram, that's probably like, I consider that's like the spoke to everything, and my website and stuff. So
your website and your books and
my books and my classes and all the fun stuff. Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, nice to get your introduction, but now I'm gonna let you go.
That's great. Well, it was wonderful chatting.
You too.
Thanks so much for listening, and for everyone empathizing with the art therapy idea. I just feel like, life isn't meant to be perfect or beautiful all the time. And I think when we realize that and kind of embrace it, art just becomes much more real.
I think you should, like you were saying, you were going to try and pick your words for talking about this online. And I think that you should talk about the getting your daughter to draw it thing, and like show her picture afterwards. I think people would love to see it.
I love that. Okay. I think that's a great, just because I think a lot of people have pain that they could draw out, and whatever monster they want to draw doesn't have to always be the diabetes monster. It could be the anxiety and fear monsters. So I've got those too. So I like that. Thank you.
Hey, lovely talking to you as always.
You too. Bye.